On the edge of the village there was an old train line. It had long been abandoned and was covered in weeds. But one night strange voices could be heard coming from the train line. People in the village would often hear the sound of a train whistle, the clatter of wheels on the tracks and muffled voices, but they never saw anything, and so they just put it down to their imaginations. One day, a young man moved into the village. He was curious about the sounds he heard, so he decided to investigate. One night when the moon was at its fullest, he went to the edge of the village to the old train tracks. He waited for hours, but then he heard the sound of a train whistle. He jumped onto the tracks and stopped the train with his bare hands. When the train came to a stop, the doors opened and out stepped a beautiful woman. She looked around and asked, "Is this the last stop?" The young man was shocked to see her, and he stammered, I don't know." The woman sighed and said, "Then I'm afraid we have a problem, because this is the last place I remember getting off the train." The young man was puzzled. He asked, "How can you not remember getting off the train? How long have you been riding it for?" "For 27 years, she replied. The young man was surprised to hear that, and he asked, "Why didn't you get off the train all those years ago?" The woman explained that she had no choice because she was tied to the train by her unfulfilled wishes. "What wishes?" the young man asked. The woman said that before she died, she made 3 wishes, but only 2 of them were fulfilled, so she couldn't move on. She wanted to find a kind young man who could grant her last wish and set her soul free. The young man felt sorry for her and asked, "What is your last wish?" The woman said that she wanted to return home one last time to see her family and friends. The young man agreed to help her and asked, "Where is your home?" The woman replied, "It's not far from here, it's in that direction." The young man took her hand and they started walking down the tracks. As they walked, the woman told the young man how she had come to be on the train. She had been on a train just like this one when she died. The train had derailed and crashed, killing everyone on board except for her. She had survived, but she had lost her family and friends in the accident. That's why her last wish was to go back and see them one more time. After walking for a while, they arrived at a small town. The young man asked, "Are you sure this is your home?" The woman nodded and said, "This is my home." They approached a house, and the woman said, "This is where I grew up." She knocked on the door, and a moment later it was opened by an old man. The young man asked, "Excuse me, are you related to the woman?" "Who?" the old man asked. "She looks familiar, but I can't quite place her." The woman stepped forward and said, "Uncle, do you not recognize me?" "It's me, your niece." The old man's eyes widened in surprise, and he exclaimed, "But how? How can this be? I thought you died in the train accident." "I did," the woman said, "but I've come back to say goodbye." The old man was shocked, and he stammered, But how is this possible?" The woman explained that she had died, but she had been given a second chance to fulfill her wishes. She told her uncle that she had seen many people in her journey, but none of them had been able to help her until she met the young man. She introduced him to her uncle and thanked him for his help. The old man was grateful to the young man for helping his niece and invited them both inside to rest. Inside the house, the woman sat down and told her uncle about her life on the train. She told him about the other passengers she had met and how they had helped her to pass the time. She also told him about the 2 wishes that had been granted and how she was hoping that her last wish would also be granted. Her uncle listened patiently, and when she finished, he said, "I'm sorry to hear that you're still tied to this train, but if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know." The woman thanked her uncle for his kindness and told him that she would keep him updated on her progress. The young man was touched by the woman's story, and he felt determined to help her. He knew that she had only one wish left, and he wanted to make sure that it came true. He asked her, "Is there anything else I can do to help you?" "Yes," she said. "I would like you to take this ring. It was my mother's, and it's the only thing I have left of her." The young man took the ring and put it in his pocket. He promised to help her, and she smiled at him gratefully. They spent the rest of the day talking, and the young man learned that her name was Maria. He also learned that she had 2 sisters and a brother who were all married and had children. Maria told him that she missed her family very much, and that was the reason she wanted to return home. The young man promised to help her make her dream come true. As evening approached, the young man got up to leave. He said goodbye to Maria and her uncle and promised to return soon. When he got back to the train tracks, he could hear the train whistle in the distance. He jumped onto the tracks and the train stopped in front of him. He opened the door and Maria stepped out. She was dressed in the same clothes as before, but now she wore a sad expression on her face. "Why are you here?" she asked. "I thought I told you to go away." The young man was confused and asked, "What do you mean? Didn't you want me to help you with your wish?" Maria shook her head and said, "No, I don't need your help anymore." She turned to leave, but the young man stopped her. He asked, "Why not? Is something wrong?" "No, it's just that I don't want to bother you any longer," she said. "You've already done enough for me." The young man insisted that she tell him what was wrong, and eventually she did. She explained that after she visited her family, she realized that she didn't want to die yet. She had spent so much time on the train that she had forgotten what it was like to be alive. She said that she was scared to die, and that she wanted to stay alive and experience more things. The young man understood, and he felt bad for trying to force her to die. He apologized and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I just wanted to help you." Maria smiled sadly and said, "It's all right. Thank you for everything you've done for me." Suddenly, the train whistle blew, and Maria turned to the tracks. She looked at the young man one last time and said, "Goodbye." With that, she stepped onto the tracks and disappeared into the darkness. The young man watched her go and felt a pang of sadness in his heart. He knew that he had failed in his mission to help her, but he also knew that she had chosen to stay alive. And that was the most important thing. He stood there for a long time, listening to the sound of the train as it traveled further and further away. When the sound finally faded away, he turned and walked back to the village. As he walked, he thought about Maria and wondered what would become of her. He hoped that she would find happiness and peace in her life, even if it meant that she wouldn't be able to move on and join her loved ones in the afterlife. The next day, the young man went back to the village elder to ask for advice. He explained what had happened to Maria and asked, "What should I do?" The village elder was wise and understanding. He told the young man that he had done the right thing by respecting Maria's wishes. He said that sometimes people need help to move on, but ultimately the decision is theirs alone. The young man felt relieved to hear this, and he thanked the village elder for his guidance. From that day on, the young man continued to live in the village. He never forgot about Maria or the lessons he had learned from her. Whenever he heard the sound of a train whistle, he would stop and listen, hoping to catch a glimpse of Maria's soul as she traveled the tracks. Although he never saw her again, he knew that she was free and at peace, and that was all that mattered.